A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
From the offseason through the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
All right, welcome inside One Giant Step. One Giant Monday night edition of One Giant Step. And no, not because we're following a Monday night game, because we're following the dismissal of head coach Brian Daboll. And this is exactly why you want to download and subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. And if you're catching us in the viewing experience on YouTube, audio versions, anytime you're on the go, of course, download and subscribe One Giant Step, free on the Audacy app. Everywhere else podcasts are available. And, an episode like this with my co-host Bryce Gelman, great producer on this show as well, is exactly why you want to be here and download and subscribe. So here's the deal. Bryce, before I bring you in, we're going to lay this out pretty simply. Brian Daboll is out as Giants head coach. So this podcast is going to basically have two envelopes in it. Envelope number one is going to be my reaction and then Bryce's reaction to the actual firing. Envelope number two is basically going to be the, okay, well, what's next portion of the podcast with now firing Brian Daboll, and that will go everything into the final 7 games to head coach, what's next. And, of course, this is going to be an expansive topic that probably follows and bleeds into preview pods. Anytime there's a little inkling or a little rumor, One Giant Step will have you covered throughout the remainder of the regular season as far as this goes. Okay? Sound good? Everybody on board the Daboll fire train? Choo-choo, here we go on One Giant Step. Bryce, so here's my reaction. And I've thought long and hard about this, and it really was my guttural reaction too. First of all, I'm not surprised that he's fired because, as I reported on WFAN last week, I was told he was out after the Denver game. Quote, cooler heads prevailed. Ownership got together and decided now was not the right time to do that. And while I left yesterday's podcast and last night kind of feeling as if the reasons he wasn't fired after Denver would still hold true here, clearly I was wrong. And this was just another example of he could not be afforded another collapse. If they were that close to firing him in Denver, they clearly fired him in Chicago. By the way, I will, on this pod, at least give myself the pat on the back stuff for those naysayers and haters. Do you think I was that crazy for saying that to the microphone? Am I ever the guy that just reports random stuff? No, when I report something, it's like 4 times in my life. It's because I have a very credible source and I feel comfortable going with it. But neither here nor there. I don't need to make
it's fair. Take your victory lap.
Because you know what? You need to hand the ball to the ref. I don't need to be like others who claim everybody follows them on Twitter and Instagram and thinks they're self-important and makes a close-up video about it. No, I don't need to do that. Okay. So here's my reaction. I am sad. I tweeted this a little while ago at Shaun Morash. I'm sad. And it's not that I'm sad because I didn't want Brian Daboll to be fired. I'm sad because I wanted Brian Daboll to work out, and I really thought after 2022 he would work out. Now, if you want to pop champagne and go nuts that Brian Daboll's fired and be happy and all of that, like, that's cool. You do you. I'm not going to tell you not to be. But I can't garner an ounce of happiness that Brian Daboll was fired, because all it means is, well, here we go. Now we're back to searching for a coach. And if I really uncover the sadness, I take you back to 2022. I mean, in Jacksonville in that road game, we have people with the blow-up heads, Daboll in the end zone. Like, he was everything for the Giant fan base. I mean, going for the 2 in Tennessee, winning a playoff game. Then in 2023, as we debated the end of Daniel Jones immediately after he was signed, we saw him win games with Tommy DeVito, and we said, it's maybe not the best thing for the franchise, which ultimately it wasn't, because had he been able to tank and draft Drake May or Jaden Daniels at the time, maybe he's a year ahead of this process and not getting fired. But that's neither here nor there. He is out. And the record wasn't good enough. I'm not going to poo-poo that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's the end game, right? It's wins and losses. Do I think that some of my takes on Brian Daboll still might be held correct down the line in another coaching opportunity? I do, but how could I fight that anymore, right? The guy did not win enough football games. And we can play the finger-pointing game, and I'll do plenty of it. I still think Joe Schoen's a problem with this team, more so than Daboll was. Doesn't matter. Daboll's out, deserved to be out, didn't win enough. I don't think this sets Jackson Dart back. I don't think that's a part of it, but I'm just sad that after where I grew up, where Jim Fossil was a good head coach that replaced Dan Reeves, into Tom Coughlin being an elite head coach that won 2 Super Bowls, to see this organization go from Ben McAdoo to Pat Shermer to Joe Judge to Brian Daboll, I did hold Brian Daboll in higher regard, probably because of 2022, the coach of the year and everything, than those other three. And to see it not work out 4 years later where he's out, it just makes me sad. It makes me sad that here we are again in this coaching search. So while some might be happy, I don't blame you. I'm not. Like, as I sit here tonight, I'm just not happy that the Giants are in another rut of having to find a head coach above anything else. Bryce, your reaction to Brian Daboll being fired?
What a fall from grace. Where we were 3 years ago, a playoff win. The hopes and dreams that we had as Giants fans had never been higher. And this is before we started our podcast, but I remember the sentiments floating around in Giants world of like, this might be the guy. They might have finally found their head coach after 3 guys since Tom Coughlin. Did they figure it out? And then to be at this point right now is, there's a part of it that's dejecting because you wanted it to work out, like you said. But there's another side of it that's like, all right, there's relief. Finally, we have something. There's some good news. There's some right move by ownership. Of course, the Joe Schoen part of it, that's another side of the equation. I don't want to talk about that right now because that's another story for another day, whether Joe Schoen deserves to stay or he deserves to go. This is about Brian Daboll and his job as a head coach. And ultimately, Shaun, it wasn't good enough. So now the Giants, again, find themselves in a situation where they need to get another head coach. That sucks. Like, that's not a good thing. We might be happy about the move, but at the end of the day, the uncertainty surrounding not having a head coach, it's a terrible place to be. And we're back. We are back. And there's a lot of question marks. I just said it. I don't want to get into it, but there are question marks about the guy who's going to be hiring the next head coach. And there are a multitude of questions that you could ask about it and yada, yada, yada. Brian Daboll, at the end of the day, started his tenure as Giants head coach going for it, going for 2 in that last game in the first game against the Titans at the end of the fourth quarter. The Giants win that game. He showed that he had a sack. And then to be where we were yesterday, where Brian Daboll had a chance, and we had this discussion yesterday. We had a slight argument about it. We disagree. We didn't see eye to eye with it. But what you can admit, and what Giants fans can admit, to go from where he went, to go from where he started as head coach to go, to where we were yesterday, I just think is a massive fall from grace. And not just the fact that we thought, he could be the next great head coach for the Giants. I think the fact that he strayed away from what he did best, which was show a pair of balls. And like, that was his calling card, Shaun. That's who he was that first season. That's partially why the Giants were so successful. I understand that circumstances change, but the thought process, the calling card as a head coach, to go from that to this, I don't think we've seen anything like that in Giants history. Usually with a head coach, it's shit to shit. With this situation, it was,
coach of the year.
Is he the future? Is he the future? To yet another collapse, the fourth such collapse on the road like that.
And look, I'm not going to bicker and argue with Daboll. I just will clean up. Everybody will point to that game with the Titans and reinvigorated. If you go back and watch a lot of the 2022 season, and boy, I've relived it. I've went back and rewatched a lot of those games. He wasn't nearly as aggressive as he was in that first game.
He also missed a 47-yard field goal. They should have
but he evolved as a coach, right? Like, he had the coach to the talent he had, which is where I don't necessarily disagree with some of the moves he had, agreed with some of the moves he had, but it is what it is. I mean, to me, I think if I think about Brian Daboll's tenure, in the end, it's ironic that he got 4 years because I think a lot of his tenure is marred by just bad timing.
Yep.
It's bad timing that he arrives on the scene with the Daniel Jones situation where they make the right calls regime and declining the option. And then Brian Daboll coaches the team above his skis. They also have a very light schedule that, we didn't care because you play who you have to have. And he goes and has that kind of year. And then he has, I don't want to call it ownership, but just like people in the Giants facility that love Daniel Jones that said, CCC, you were able to coach this into our guy, where it was kind of hung over their heads about signing Daniel Jones, where I don't believe Daboll ever really wanted to do that. And he did. And then Daniel Jones regresses and gets hurt in 2023. And then Brian Daboll, because as a coach, you're installed in the coach to win, does that with Tommy DeVito, and then the guy he wants in Jaden Daniels or even Drake May is unattainable because nobody's willing to trade with those top three. And then he has to sit there on that Hard Knocks as Saquon walks out, as they finally feel like they're trying to institute a plan and go, oh, same quarterback room. And then we bring back Daniel Jones. And you saw what happened there. And Brian Daboll had to be like, geez. And then he finally, even after not picking first overall, identified a quarterback he wanted. And then as it so was, okay, I finally get my quarterback, but I'm on the hot seat because I've now had 2 back-to-back bad years. Oh, and on top of that, we're going to get the hardest schedule that the New York Giants franchise has had in 20 years in terms of percentages.
Listeners are not going to like this.
Oh,
That's
and then
the viewers are not going to like this.
Then Malik Neighbors gets hurt because our general manager is so incompetent that he brought back Darius Slayton and didn't do enough behind that. Oh, and then I lose this all-world rookie in Cam Scatterbo. Look, those are excuses, and Brian Daboll deserves to be fired. I'm not fighting that. I'm just saying, like, when you look back, it is insane. You can make the case of how insanely bad timed out by excelling in 2022 was, what happened with Daniel Jones. It just sunk what Brian Daboll wanted to do. You know what? But guess what? A great head coach works his way out of it, punches his way out of it. I see teams win every week with poor quarterback play. Giants weren't able to do that for 2 years. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just painting the picture.
Let me ask you a question quickly.
Yeah.
We were fervently in support of Brian Daboll returning as the Giants head coach, and he doesn't even make it through week 10. Do you think we were wrong about that? Because I think there's two sides to this argument.
Yeah, I mean, look, if in hindsight, if you told me that Brian Daboll wasn't going to last the season, of course you'd have to admit you were wrong on it. Now, the other side of it is, though,
he's the one who identified the quarterback.
I agree.
That was him. So in some sense, we're vindicated, right?
Well,
like we thought he should return. He wasn't a good enough coach. The Giants have their franchise quarterback because he did return.
Look, and we're a Jackson Dart podcast. It's hard to find anybody who's not pro Jackson Dart. There's a chance Jackson Dart regresses after this, and we've seen the best football. Like, I hope that doesn't happen, but with the Giants, you can never count anything out. This is one of those things where you pin it 5 years from now, 6 years from now, 7 years from now, and you look back and you go, you might be thanking Brian Daboll as opposed to like hating him.
Yeah, it's too early.
Too early. And look, Brian Daboll's a prime example of that. I mean, if you told everybody that Brian Daboll would be fired in 4 years and 2022 is the best you have, maybe this is Jackson Dart. Like, I hope that's not the case, please. But with the Giants, how do I not just have that dreaded feeling? Okay. Now, as far as what's next, and it ties into kind of stuff that Bryce was talking about. Here's my gut feeling on what's next. First of all, what a garbage job by the New York Giants when they released the statement/tweet portion of the statement, burying the lead that we all knew was coming, but they made a point to bury it, which tells you they know it's horrible, that Joe Schoen is going to be leading the search for a new head coach. If you look at what the Giants Twitter put out, that looked like that was it for the statement. And then you click the link underneath and you go to thegiants.com, and then there's more in there about how Joe Schoen's leading the GM search. How do you bury that on Twitter? So that's part of what's next.
Like, if you make that decision, own it.
Exactly. And they weren't.
Hey, we did it.
It tells you everything you need to know about the organization. They knew it would be met by pushback. So don't put it out where that tweet has to live forever about Joe Schoen. It's like they played a game there. I couldn't stand that the Giants did it, but they did it.
I didn't really notice that. That's bad.
Yeah,
that's bad.
Because at first we did the show on WFAN. We're like, wait a minute. Now we knew Joe Schoen was staying for now, and you probably thought he was staying after this year anyway. So I don't think it's breaking news because that's where everything was going. But it was.
No, I obviously knew this, but I didn't see the fact that it was buried.
Yeah, when you put in a statement that's not on the social media part of the statement that Joe Schoen's leading the search for, it's just ridiculous. So now, as far as that, here's my gut feeling on what's next. There's two Shaun Morashes here. I feel like the Alex versus A-Rod. Don't hold this against me, and I'm just going to be as transparent as possible, as I always try to be with the audience. The Giants are generational for me. The Giants are basically like family for me, right? Like, my dad passes down to me. I pass it down to my kids. Like, I get together. Like, it means the world to my family to watch Giant football together. It's like our one common thing that brings everybody together. I say that to say, like, I live and die with the team, and I try to be the eternal optimist. It's probably why I was so high on believing in Daboll to the bitter end, and for a long time, Daniel Jones to the bitter end. It breaks my heart to say this, but I have no faith that the Giants are going to get this next hire right, and it ties into the Joe Schoen thing. This is, again, a half measure, and I'm not sure how much is tied to the health, the unfortunate situation going on with John Mara, how much as it's tied to delusion and loving Joe Schoen's drafts that I don't think look nearly as good. I mean, geez, Tyler Nubin just took a bad angle again. I don't know how much that's tied to anything. But I have seen Dave Gettleman have a Judge hire after Shermer that leads to Judge having an offensive coordinator and Jason Garrett forced on him. I've seen Jerry Reese sit there with Tom Coughlin on the veteran, even though if he didn't hire him, and then just simply promote a Ben McAdoo, which I'm hoping isn't the case here with Mike Kafka. Like, I've seen it. And what's so disheartening is if I could take you back in a transporter 4 years when they hired Joe Schoen and then Brian Daboll, what was different about that was the Giants did something they don't normally do.
Yep.
They went outside the family.
Yep.
Think about it. Ben McAdoo was inside the circles. He was elevated. Joe Judge was a call from Bill Belichick. Okay. Dave Gettleman was hired as the general manager because he had worked with the Giants in the past. So then he hired a Pat Shermer. Like, there are all connections to, like, the Giants wanting to go with who they're familiar with. And damn it, when they hired Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, the process was right. The process was right to rip this up and try something new and go outside the comfort zone. Remember, there was so many stories about that. And just because you got it wrong with Brian Daboll, and I think Joe Schoen, even though you're keeping him, doesn't mean your process was wrong. So what are the Giants doing here? Joe Schoen now has entered that realm of familiarity. That's how he's going to keep his job. So then what's next as far as a Joe Schoen hire that gets approved by ownership? I have already heard it on Monday night here. Football, Ian Rappaport pregame on NFL Network mentioned 3 names to keep a close eye on, and they all 3 have something in common. Yeah. Steve Spagnuolo, Antonio Pierce, and Lou Anarumo, who's right now the defensive coordinator of the Colts. He's a local guy, has ties to the Giants as well. All 3 have ties to the Giants.
All 3 terrible options.
Okay, now here's what I will say. Spags would not excite me, although I do think no nonsense being that long.
Failed head coach.
Pierce, I think, is a failed head coach. The only one that would semi entice me is this Lou Anarumo, who has interviewed a bunch of places. I can't make a declarative statement on it. Now, when you say failed head coach, this is the other thing you have to keep in mind, Bryce. And this goes to it's whatever your preference can be, and I'll let you answer this all in a second. Any guy that they hire is either going to have been a failed head coach who's getting another opportunity, or an unknown coordinator, of which we've gone down that path. And then you have to decide what is best for this team. Unknown coordinator where it's something fresh, or does this team need desperately a stabilizer who at least has the experience of being a head coach? But remember, when you use the word failed, all of these guys are going to be failed. I say this to say, I haven't formulated my list. Like, if you asked me today, Shaun, who would be your top 2 candidates? I could change my mind in 2 hours, right? But I would tell you right now, I'm intrigued by the idea that Cliff Kingsbury failed as a head coach at Arizona, learned a little bit offensive mind, take him from Washington, give him a better quarterback than he had in Kyler Murray and Jackson Dart, and let's go to work. I'm intrigued by that. I'm intrigued by the unknown in Clint Kubiak, who's the son of a head coach,
there you go,
who's from that Kyle Shanahan tree. I'm intrigued by that. I don't think the Giants are going to do that. I think it's the guy too, but that's why this gives me no hope. I don't think the Giants are going to do that. I think they're going to do one of these layup guys that's going to be very boring.
We don't know.
My gut is comfort, and I have no faith that this team is going to get it right and think outside the box. Bryce, what say you?
I have to give one piece of credit to Joe Schoen. You mentioned all these former GMs. Every single one of those guys took over a roster, and by the end of their tenure, said roster was worse. Joe Schoen took over a barren roster. Not much talent all around. Joe Schoen now, dude, I mean, I was talking about this before. They have 4 guys on the team that are top 3 in their respective positions in the NFL. You know, like, they may have been layups. They may have been holdovers from the previous team, the previous GM, but we do have to
Thomas,
give Joe Schoen,
Lawrence, Neighbors, and
Thomas Lawrence, Burns.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's defensive player of the year candidate. Absolutely, he's a top 3 edge rusher in the NFL right now.
This year,
but we're talking currently, and if we're talking really currently, then Dexter Lawrence is not a part of that group. All right, let's call it a spade a spade.
I think we're stretching even to get 4.
All right, but like, subjectively, it's like there's a very valid argument to be made. It's not important. I have to address that. But the other part of it is, like, we haven't seen anything yet. We hear these reports. We hear these rumblings. It's November 10th.
I know.
Kafka hasn't even gotten a chance to coach 1 game. And I've heard a multitude of, not even reports, but, these are takes. These are not, there's no, formulative, like, points, opinions. What I've seen is that Honestly, I'm not even going to play into that. I'm not even going to play into that kind of speculative stuff. Like, it's not important. I'm going to try to stay on topic here. But what I am going to say right now is Joe Schoen. I'm going to get ripped for this. I think he deserves a chance. I think he deserves it. He deserves the chance.
God
He's made some terrible moves, but this is what we're stuck with. Nothing has changed.
Well, you have that. You have that
coach.
right.
He has a chance to prove himself, but at the end of the day, he deserves this chance.
I disagree. I mean, the idea that why does Gunnar Olszewski have to play outside receiver on Sunday because Jalen Hyde's occupying a roster spot?
Okay. Here's the one thing that I'd say. Obviously,
way more bad than good. That's all I'll say.
I get that. The Giants have not been able to have a serious defensive coordinator because the head coach has not allowed a serious defensive coordinator
Sure
to
about
work
that?
for him.
Because Shane, we saw in Hard Knocks.
No one wanted to work for Brian Daboll. Okay. I think this is very obvious around the
league.
He didn't garner respect that other head coaches could potentially garner.
That's not why.
I'm just saying he's a.
It's because 2 years in
with Wink Martindale, everyone saw what happened, and they're like, "This guy's a psychopath. He didn't handle this well.
Bryce.
There was a right way and a wrong way to do it. He handled it wrong. He's immature as a head coach, and he's gone now. And it opens things up. And I have to take this.
Where's Wink Martindale working right now? I got to stop
Michigan. I get that. I understand that.
Because he was toxic. That's why.
All right, but you can't say that Daboll wasn't. He wasn't. Like, 100%. I agree. But he wasn't innocent and all that. And I know this is difficult.
No, I think you just had two hard-headed guys.
Honestly, I was talking about it before, and I was indifferent on whether or not Joe Schoen had this chance. But I've accepted it, and
we have no choice to accept it.
We have no choice. But so I think. In turn, these last two drafts have earned him the right to do this. And you might say that Neighbors was a layup.
They have. Outside of Neighbors, Drew Phillips, who I like, is fucking all over the place of penalties.
Dude, to be fair, you were singing the praises of Drew Phillips this entire year up until this point. I'm just saying.
I
know I'm gonna get ripped. I know I'm gonna rip for this, but
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to just let me just
refresh. This is why I didn't want to do the Shane.
Stop arguing me for a second. Just please, Bryce, I'm begging you, just shut up for a second. Okay, I'm sorry. Tyler Nubin stinks. I like Drew Phillips, the tackler. He still has a long way to put it this way. He's a good player that could be a good nickel in the NFL. He's certainly not somebody that saves a GM's job. Theo Johnson, who had a good game Sunday, drops too many passes to be touted as a number one tight end. Tyrone Tracy, who I like, good patient back, is not even going to be the best back on the team next year when Cam Scadaboo is back. And Darius Muasau is too slow to play linebacker. All that talk about that draft class, it's not really that good. It's fine. It is way overrated it. And I can only wait and hope that this draft class works out that way, this past one. Right now, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm down on Abdul Carter. I am.
I think
I'm down on Darius Alexander. I think those guys have room to grow, but I'm down on them. That's all I'm saying.
This is the one thing I'll say about that. I think we need to reserve all judgment about the defensive players. At the end of the day, we all can agree on Shane Bowen being a bottom 3 defensive coordinator in the NFL. He's not been able to get enough out of these players. We saw the promise from Deonte Banks in his rookie season. We saw the flashes of potential greatness. And what have we seen over the last 2 years? He's one of the worst players in the NFL. That doesn't happen overnight. And it's not just the defensive coordinator, but still, you're telling me that plays no factor in how good these guys are. So that's one thing. It's one thing I'd like to see a change of the guards when it comes to the defensive coordinator. And I get it. I know it's an unpopular take about Joe Schoen. I might be one of the only people saying this right now, but I'd like to see what a more competent and mature head coach could bring with a top-of-the-end defensive coordinator. And then if after a year it doesn't work out, the head coach looks like an idiot, Joe Schoen could be gone. All right?
But that's backwards. That's the problem.
But here's the thing. They're not going to fire him anyway. They're not going to fire. We know this organization.
But this is the problem, Bryce. This is the problem now by keeping. This is exactly the problem. If this draft goes backwards and they have another bad draft, you've now hired the head coach. You're extending bad decision making 3 years. It's why you need to do a total clean out. They're not going to. Gives me no confidence. And also for all the talk about, look at all these guys went backwards and Wink Martindale. I don't know, man. It's funny. You just mentioned Brian Burns putting him top 3 at his position. He's having the best year of his career under Shane Bowen. So, and I don't like Shane Bowen.
Who else is having career years? Who else is having careers? He's one of 11 that are starters,
Okay.
So
he might be the defensive player of the year under a crappy defensive.
Well,
I'm just saying.
You also look what he has around him, and a lot of pressure for Abdul Carter giving him sacks. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Okay. I'm tired of hearing the pressures. I'm not, and Abdul Carter is not playing up to his standard that we thought as a pick. I get
fair.
Shane Bowen, I don't think is good. He's gone regardless. I'm just saying when we want to blame coaching. Sometimes the players just stink or aren't as good as we think they are. And I think that Joe Schoen put together a roster that when they lost Malik Neighbors, you saw the wide receiver room. When they lost Cam Scadaboo, you couldn't get enough there. Geez. Every time Andrew Thomas couldn't play, they couldn't field reputable offensive line. How many times do we have that? The kicker situation is an outright fucking
This is all inexcusable. I agree.
But these are all my point is Paulson Adebo gets hurt. That Denver game, the defense completely collapsed. Like, yes, I think that the Giants have enough top-end talent to start at key positions where if you have the full 22 healthy starters in the NFL, could the Giants compete with like a decent schedule and go win 10 games? Yes, they can. But
yes,
that's the problem.
But
they
you
have
would say
failed.
This roster on paper with an easier schedule could be a playoff team.
Okay.
Can you say that?
No.
I'm just asking.
I'm answering. If completely healthy, but that's not the reality of the NFL. You face injuries. This team, after 4 years of Joe Schoen's roster churning, whether it's free agents, bargain bin free agents, or overall draft classes, is not built to withstand injuries. And you see a team like the 49ers still compete. Like other teams in the NFL, they deal with injuries and you get that next man up. The Giants, for this entire tenure, cannot field a next man up team. You know they are just doomed in whatever position group they have. If one injury befalls them, it's crazy. It's absolutely meant. Like, they signed Russell Wilson at $13 million, not knowing they were going to get Jackson Dart. The moment Jackson Dart got hurt on Sunday, you knew and they knew they could not score points. That's on Joe Schoen as well for identifying.
It should have been Jameis, but another story for another day.
Great, then he would have thrown 2 picks. Like, regardless, it's not they did not leave the like. That's part of roster building. Yes, there are glamour names and headlines. He didn't do a good enough job. All right, my blood pressure's up. We gave you your bonus one Giants.
This is why I know. I'm sorry for stirring the pot here. I know it's a hot take. We
will be back with a preview edition for the Packer game on what I guess could be a Mike Kafka, Russell Wilson game. Maybe Jameis plays. Maybe Dart actually clears concussion protocol. We'll see what the hell happens. Me and Bryce will be back to preview the whole damn thing this week. This is why you want to download, subscribe to One Giant Step everywhere podcasts are available. He's Bryce Gelman. I'm Shaun Morash. Thanks for taking one giant firing step with us.